Well, in the words of Tyler Knott, mountains know secrets we need to learn. That it might take time, it might be hard, but if you just hold on long enough, you will find the strength to rise up. And that's how the mountains are, stable, warm, so high, rock solid. But when we go to the mountains, we learn so much about ourselves, the character, the beauty of nature, and a lot more. To see the beauty of nature, we have to go out for a journey. And when that journey is recorded in any form, that is called a travelogue. And one such travelogue is Silk Road. This is the first part of the explanation of the chapter. In the previous introductory video, I told you that the chapter is written by Nick Middleton and he went to Mount Kailash to complete the Kora. So let's get started with his journey. And because this happens to be an excerpt and not the entire journey, we are going to get started with Ravu, a place named Ravu. Okay, let's get started. A flawless half moon floated in a perfect blue sky on the morning we said our goodbyes. Extended banks of the cloud like long French loaves glowed pink as the sun emerged to splash the distant mountain tops with a rose tint blush. Now that we were leaving Ravu, Lamo said she wanted to give me a farewell present. So, me here, I here is the narrator. And he was in Ravu, staying at the place of Lamo, and they were leaving Ravu. And that is when Lamo said that she would like to give him a present. And the beautiful scenery is presented. It's the morning time, and the extended banks, the clouds, the description involves French loaves. French loaves, these are the French loaves on your left, and the color, the beautiful brownish, pinkish color could be seen in the sky, and that is how the narrator described the scenery. One evening, I had told her through Daniel that I was heading towards Mount Kailash to complete the Kora. And she had said that I ought to get some warmer clothes. So, when you go through this particular line, one evening I had told her through Daniel, it means that Daniel happens to be the translator in between. The narrator did not know the local language. The lady Lamo, she didn't know English. So, they used to communicate with the help of Daniel. Moving forward, after ducking back into her tent, ducking back is going back. She emerged carrying one of the long-sleeved sheepskin coats that all the men wore. Chetan sized me up as we clambered into his car. Ah yes, he declared, Drogba sir. So when Lamo gifted a sheepskin coat, this is the sheepskin coat that all the men wore in that area because it's absolutely chilling in that area. Then Chetan, the driver, saw the narrator and said that you look like a shepherd, sir. And yes, they were there to complete the Kora, and Kora is said to be the essential manifestation of Buddhism in Tibet and its antique culture. It means the circumambulation of their temple or the stupa. It also refers to a category of meditation performed by the Buddhist believers. But the point that we are taking up out of these two is the circumambulation of the Mount Kailash. And here on your right, we have the shepherds. So the narrator looked like a shepherd when he wore that sheepskin coat. We took a shortcut to get off to Changtang. Chetan knew a route that would take us southwest, almost directly towards Mount Kailash. So it means that Chetan knew all the routes, the shortcuts, and all. It involved crossing several fairly high mountain passes. He said, But no problem, sir, he assured us, if there is no snow. What was the likelihood of that? I asked. Not knowing, sir, until we get there. From the gently rolling hills of Ravu, the shortcut took us across vast open plains with nothing in them except a few gazelles. And these are gazelles, it's a breed, a type of deer. And look how beautiful they are. And they were looking at the vehicle, the narrator, and everybody inside. The gazelles that would look up from nibbling the arid pastures and frown before bounding away into the void. Nibbling means they were eating something. Arid are the open blank area, and they were eating, and suddenly they would look at a vehicle, and that is when they would notice that somebody is there, and they would just jump away from the vehicle. Further on, where the plains became more stony than grassy, a great herd of wild ass came into view. Chetan told us we were approaching them long before they appeared. Kyang, he said, pointing towards a far off pall of dust. When we drew near, I could see the herd galloping en masse, wheeling and turning in tight formation as if they were practicing maneuvers on some predetermined course. Plumes of dust billowed into the crisp, clean air. So, the narrator, Daniel and Chetan, they saw the herd of wild ass, and maneuver is the word. Maneuver is a movement or set of movements needing skill and care. That reversing round a corner is one of the maneuvers you are required to perform in a driving test, and it requires a skill. So when they looked at the herd of wild ass, they looked like a unit. You know, there is a word en masse, ENMASSE. So the entire herd of wild ass, they were working together, they were walking together like a unit. If one goes in left, the entire herd would go in the left direction. If one goes in right, then the entire herd would go to the right direction. So this is how it was. And the Chetan told them that, you know, the herd of wild ass was coming towards them from a far away distance, and because they were too many, that is why the pall of dust is there. So they saw the gazelles and then the herd of wild ass. As hills started to push up once more from the rocky wilderness, we passed solitary drogbas tending their flocks. Sometimes men, sometimes women, these well wrapped figures would pause and stare at our car, occasionally waving as we passed. So the solitary drogbas, the solitary shepherds with their flocks, the sheep, they would look at the narrator, the jeep, the vehicle, and they would wave goodbye to them. When the track took us close to their animals, the sheep would take evasive action, veering away from the speeding vehicle. So the sheep, like the deer, the gazelles, would go away from the vehicle when they spot someone. So this is kind of behavior shown by basically all the kinds of animals. Why that is important, I will tell you a little later. We passed nomads' dark tents pitched in splendid isolation, usually with a huge black dog, a Tibetan Mastiff, standing guard. These beasts would cock their great big heads when they became aware of our approach and fix us in their sights. As we continued to draw closer, they would explode into action, speeding directly towards us like a bullet from a gun and nearly as fast. So, this is the difference between Tibetan Mastiffs and other animals. But before that, let's look at the word nomad. Is a member of a community without fixed habitation, which regularly moves to and from the same areas. Such groups include hunter gatherers, pastoral nomads, and tinkers or trader nomads. So, in that plainer area, they saw the nomads, their tents pitched in, and with them, Tibetan mastiffs were there. And as far as Tibetan mastiffs were concerned, they were very offensive, unlike all the other animals that they had seen. Well, moving forward, more about Tibetan Mastiffs. These shaggy monsters, shaggy is hairy, blacker than the darkest night, usually wore bright red collars and barked furiously with massive jaws. They were completely fearless of our vehicle, shooting straight into our path, causing Chetan to brake and swerve. So, these are some of the physical features as well as some characteristic features related to Tibetan Mastiffs. They were black in color, hairy, fearless, furious, offensive, and very unlike all the other animals, and that is why they were very popular somewhere. Now, where? Let's see. The dog would make a chase for 100 meters or so before easing off. Having seen us off the property, it wasn't difficult to understand why ferocious Tibetan Mastiffs became popular in China's imperial courts as hunting dogs, brought along the Silk Road in ancient times as tribute from Tibet. So these are the Tibetan Mastiffs, and when you look at them, you can clearly understand that how ferocious and furious they were, and that is why they were very popular in the Chinese imperial court. Imperial is royal because of their qualities, physical features, and everything. So, moving forward now, by now we could see snow capped mountains gathering on the horizon. We entered a valley where the river was wide and mostly clogged with ice, brilliant white and glinting in the sunshine. So, there was ice all over. The trail hugged its bank, twisting with the meanders as we gradually gained height and the valley sides closed in. So, from the gently rolling hills of Ravu, they entered into the plainer areas, and then they entered into the mountain area, where on one side the river was there, on the other side the mountain, the valley was there, and everywhere the snow was here, there, everywhere. The turns became sharper and the ride bumpier. Chetan now in third gear as we continued to climb. The track moved away from the icy river, laboring through steeper slopes that sported big rocks daubed with patches of bright orange lichen. So the roads were like this. On one hand side we have the mountains, on the other we have these deep valleys, and it's pretty dangerous to drive over there, but somebody like Chetan could easily drive there. So they were heading towards the mountain region. And the big rocks, they were filled with orange lichen, the moss, the fungi. Beneath the rocks, hunks of snow clung on in the near permanent shade. I felt the pressure building up in my ears, held my nose, snorted, and cleared them. We struggled round another tight bend, and Chetan stopped. He had opened his door and jumped out of his seat before I realized what was going on. Snow, said Daniel, as he too exited the vehicle, letting in a breath of cold air as he did so. So they were in the mountain region, the snow was visible everywhere, and later on they had to stop because it was a snow clad road and they could not continue. So let us see how they will reach towards their goal, how many difficulties they need to they need to face as far as geographical difficulties, physical difficulties are concerned. That we will go through in the next part. But let's close it for today with this beautiful quotation that difficult roads often lead to beautiful destinations. And that is why, even when the roads are difficult, the path is troubling, we still have to move on and go on so that we can reach to our beautiful destination. So let's see how the narrator and the other people reach their destination in the next part. For now, thanks a lot for listening.